All right, everyone, let's dive into today's topic. President Trump's recent executive order establishing what's called the U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve. Now, this isn't just about Bitcoin prices or digital assets as investments. No, this is a whole new chapter in the relationship between governments and what has been, until now, a pretty decentralized financial tool. So, first, here's what this executive order actually does. It directs federal agencies to consolidate seized Bitcoin as part of what's being called the digital asset stockpile. Essentially, it pulls confiscated cryptocurrencies, often obtained through criminal or civil forfeitures, and funnels them into a new Federal Reserve. And here's the kicker. It avoids new costs to taxpayers by using a budget-neutral acquisition strategy. That last part is the official story, of course. But the political tension surrounding this initiative is tangible. On one side, Senator Cynthia Lummis is vocally supportive. She's even reintroduced the Bitcoin Act, which, if passed, would push the government further into accumulating up to 1 million Bitcoin over 5 years. She argues this could secure the United States financial leadership, just like gold did for earlier generations. Then we have Representative Jerry Connolly and others in opposition. Now, their concerns are harsh, describing the reserve as a financial gamble with no transparency, which puts taxpayers in harm's way. They insist that this initiative prioritizes private interests over public good. And I mean, seriously, the lack of congressional oversight here is honestly concerning. We're talking about Bitcoin, a notoriously volatile asset, being involved in national fiscal strategy. That's not small potatoes, And what about the markets? Well, the ripple effects were immediate. Bitcoin's value fluctuated sharply when the announcement hit, though it's hard to attribute that solely to the reserve. Then there's Richard Ting, Binance CEO, who's been vocal about the worldwide implications. In his view, this move could spur other governments to create similar reserves, accelerating crypto adoption globally. It's a bold statement, but not entirely unrealistic, given the influence the U.S. wields. Yet, whether this reserve stabilizes or destabilizes markets remains to be seen. Right now, we're in the thick of potential regulatory shifts, political drama, and let's face it, unpredictable market behavior. It's as much a question about governance as it is about financial resilience. And where this journey will take us, well, that's the billion-dollar question. Or should I say, the trillion-dollar Bitcoin question. If one thinks about Trump's desire to make Bitcoin the new world currency, it provides clearer insight as to why Trump is creating utter chaos in the stock market with his trade war tariffs. Is Trump trying to devalue the U.S. dollar? If the U.S. dollar continues to lose its value, we will be forced to seek a replacement currency. So we've laid the groundwork with what the strategic Bitcoin reserve is and the political storm it stirred. But now, let's crack open the more philosophical, and some would say existential, question. Does a reserve like this clash with Bitcoin's identity? After all, this is a system built on decentralization. Its appeal stemming from the freedom it promises, free from centralized control or oversight. Critics are already talking about this. Folks like Representative Connolly have called attention to how such a reserve positions the government as a potential market maker, or worse, a market disruptor. And they're not wrong to raise the alarm. Bitcoin's ethos, practically its DNA, is about being a permissionless and decentralized tool. A government stockpile with its controlling hand could send us veering away from that ethos. Does that shake trust in the system? Maybe. Does it invite ripple effects across global crypto markets? Definitely. Now let's talk about public sentiment, because wow, it's revealing. Did you know a recent Data for Progress poll found that the majority of Americans, yes, a majority, oppose federal funding for cryptocurrency projects? A mere 10% support increasing funds in this area. I mean, 10%. Most folks seem to prioritize issues like Social Security or infrastructure over, decentralized ledgers for financial autonomy. Let's hear what the CEO of MicroStrategy, Michael Saylor, has to say about Bitcoin. Mind you, Michael Saylor is one of the largest holders of Bitcoin. Play this clip.
A better world. We can create digital tokens that 40 million businesses can issue overnight, and they can raise $10 trillion in order to engage in capital creation and innovation. Their customers and investors want to give them money. We can tokenize our stocks and bonds. We can tokenize our currency. We can put the US dollar in a digital asset form. We will export our currency to China, to Russia, to Africa, to Europe. Everybody on Earth will be using our currency to trade every minute of the day on 8 billion smartphones.
Wow.
And then this last idea is embrace Bitcoin. Bitcoin is the one universally acknowledged commodity. If we let banks in the United States use Bitcoin and custody it and sell it and buy it and loan against it, if the United States government begins to hold it in a strategic reserve, the beneficiary will be America.
If you could talk to President Trump and say, here's the one thing I would tell you to do to ensure that America leads the way in the crypto space, what would you tell him?
I would say he's already done the first thing, which is highlight Bitcoin as a store of value, as digital gold, and put the United States support behind a strategic Bitcoin reserve. The second thing is to support the creation in law of a legitimate path for issuers in the United States to issue digital tokens, digital securities, and digital currency. Because if American companies can create those digital assets, we will become bankers to the world.
What does the future look like to you with Bitcoin, with cryptocurrency in general? Where do you see it 5, 10, or even 100 years from now?
I think big tech is going to embrace Bitcoin. They're going to let you hold your Bitcoin on your iPhone, on your Android phone. It will find its way into Microsoft software, Amazon software, Google, Apple software. I think that banks are going to embrace Bitcoin. So your bank's going to give you a loan against your Bitcoin. It'll buy Bitcoin for you. Insurance companies will start to support Bitcoin. I think families will increasingly begin to see it as their savings account. The yoga studio, the restaurant, the hotel chain, they'll be able to raise capital in order to improve their business and to innovate. And I think that sound money, that will spread through South America, Africa, Asia. It'll tread to China. So I think the future is American values, American technology, not just making America great, but also spreading economic prosperity to the entire world.
Well, Michael Saylor, I want to say thank you. Thanks for breaking it down for us, making it more palatable, I think, to the average person to understand and feel comfortable with, because it really does feel like this is the future, this is where we're headed, and thanks for joining us for a little bit.
Thank you for the opportunity.
The question is whether the majority dissent regarding Bitcoin reflects legitimate caution or a misunderstanding of what's at play here. Either way, it's clear government efforts like this need to do a lot more in the transparency department. And transparency, or the lack thereof, is where the skepticism thrives. Honestly, there's so much missing from the discussion about how these assets are managed. Who decides what goes into creating this so-called stockpile? Who keeps them accountable? It feels like a giant question mark, and you and I both know that trust without clarity, yeah, that's always a slippery slope. This all takes me back to my introduction to Bitcoin, and I promise this story has a point. Years ago, at a healthcare innovation conference, there was this tiny booth, kind of tucked away, presenting Bitcoin's potential for, of all things, medical billing. The big pitch? Reducing costs by cutting out third parties. So, there I was, trying to wrap my head around it, and honestly, I didn't get it at first. But over time, it sunk in. This wasn't just tech solving a problem. It was tech challenging systems. It was about empowerment, not control. And that's the essence we can't lose. As exciting as these government initiatives sound, adoption has to be responsible. It cannot sacrifice the principles that make Bitcoin what it is, or frankly, what made me curious about it in the first place. And that's where we'll leave it for now. Next, we'll shift gears and look at how this could ripple beyond our borders. Could the U.S. really set the tone for global crypto policies, or are we just one player in a much bigger international race? Let's unpack that next. So let's zoom out a bit. We've covered the U.S. strategic Bitcoin reserve from its inception to its potential challenges. But what about the global stage? Because make no mistake, this isn't just about what happens within U.S. borders. It's about the kind of signal this sends to an international audience. For instance, think about countries like Russia, which as of late seem to be carefully considering their approach to digital assets. If the United States positions itself as a leader by leveraging a reserve like this, it could spark a geopolitical race. Other nations might feel compelled to catch up, or perhaps even more likely, start encoding their own crypto frameworks. Now, depending on how you look at it, that could either elevate Bitcoin's global adoption or it could undermine its decentralized ethos. Are we looking at the start of a new kind of digital Cold War? It's chilling to think about, but not implausible. And then there's the matter of economic authority versus public trust. Leading in crypto financialization might solidify economic dominance on paper, but, and it's a big but, we can't ignore how much of the public already distrusts government involvement in volatile markets. You know, transparency, or the lack of it, has been a recurring theme in this story. And without it, how do we avoid fostering further skepticism or worse, disaffection? I mean, this is exactly the kind of initiative that could divide public opinion further, opening the door for conspiracy theories to flourish. This brings me to a deeper question. Ethical considerations. Can a government truly democratize Bitcoin while also managing it as a strategic asset? Doesn't that feel like trying to square a circle? Bitcoin was envisioned to empower individuals, not serve as a tool of statecraft or national strategy. If government control seeps into the very fabric of a decentralized ecosystem, are we compromising the principles that made it revolutionary in the first place? And on a broader scale, do such initiatives reflect democratic ideals, or are they a departure from the values they claim to support? You see, I can't help but circle back to the idea that the ethos of decentralization is, at its core, about resistance to control. Think about it this way. Bitcoin isn't just a financial tool. It's a philosophy, one that challenges traditional authority structures and prioritizes individual autonomy. If governments begin to co-opt that vision, what does that mean for the soul of cryptocurrency itself? And as we wrap up, here's the takeaway I want to leave you with. The story of Bitcoin, its rise, its challenges, its global implications is still being written. The U.S. Strategic Bitcoin Reserve is just one chapter, albeit a pivotal one. But the bigger question isn't just how we manage these assets. It's about who we want to be while managing them. Will we use them to consolidate power or to truly empower? Because the answer to that question could define not just the future of Bitcoin, but the very idea of what financial sovereignty means in a rapidly changing world. That wraps up today's episode of The Real 411. I want to personally thank each and every one of you for tuning in and for your continued support. It means more than you know. If you found value in today's discussion, please drop a comment. Follow us on all social media platforms and let us know what topics you'd like to see us cover next. Be sure to sign up for our email newsletter so you never miss an update or exclusive insight. And if you believe in independent media that digs deeper and dares to tell the truth, please consider following The Real 411 on Substack and Fanbase. We offer both free and paid subscriptions, and your support helps us continue producing content that informs, empowers, and sparks real conversation. Thanks again for being part of this journey, because remember, the story is never just the headline. Until next time, stay informed, stay bold, and stay real.